I mean, I guess, is Mithril like the Force now, where the Force can do anything you want it to be? All right, guys, in this episode, I'm going to be talking about the elves in season 2, episode 5 of The Rings of Power, and how it's simply more of the same, right? They just tell us everything, they show us nothing, everything is sort of silly and dumb, and we have one of the worst. I, I don't understand this. Maybe some of you stonesmiths and carvers, I don't know, what do you call somebody who sculptors can in this episode? I don't understand something in particular about this. So let's talk about the elves in the Rings of Power. Before I do, thanks everybody for your support. Like us, subscribe, click the little bell, etc., etc., etc. But also, if you want more, go to thewondering.com/member, become a member for $4 a month. The first month is free. Or go to thewondering.com/Patreon, become a Patreon supporter. You get the exact same stuff. It's just in Patreon. It's $1 more because Patreon takes more, and they have a 7-day trial. That's all you can do. I like not being beholden to something like Patreon, making sure that it's all within our own ecosystem. So go to thewondering.com/member and get the whole month free, and it's only $4 a month. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Let's talk about the elves. The crazy, stupid... sorry. I'm wearing my heart on my sleeve here with how much I care about these elves. Okay. Celebrimbor is giving a wonderful speech about how these elves and dwarves really didn't like each other, when in fact these elves and these dwarves kind of got along, right? The elves of Regan, the dwarves of Khazad-dûm, they were okay together. They weren't the elves of the first stage, or the elves and the dwarves of the first stage, where the dwarves came and assaulted Thingol in Menegroth and took the Silmaril and then were killed by Beren, and everything was lost in the river there. Anyway, so the elves and the dwarves here, and according to Tolkien, they actually really got along. And we see this is according to literally the caption. If you were watching the captions on Amazon, said Narvi's big moment. And what is, you might ask, what is Narvi's big moment? Well, if you've read Tolkien, you know that the doors of Durin were constructed by Narvi. Here you have the doors of Durin. Okay, the doors of Durin are freaking created in Region? Is that what we're saying? That looks like what Tolkien had. That's great. Why are they in a Region? Who would carve these massive stone doors hundreds or even a mile away from the mountain? Who would do that? What is the point of having these massive stone doors? And here's the greatest part. He talks about how it's only seen in moonlight. Again, member Barry number 1. It's only seen in moonlight, guys. Take a look at the doors, right? Can you actually see here? There's no moonlight, but look there. I can see all the carving behind him, and it's not moonlight. I guess they could say they'll fill it in with the Ithildin that only shows up in moonlight, but it seems a little silly to say it can only be seen in moonlight. Okay, anyway, again, dumb writing. The dissonance between what we see and what they show us on the mountain. On the mountain. What they show us in the show. I was just thinking those freaking doors need to be on the mountain, not in the top of the forge for Celebrimbor, where he's giving some sort of silly rah-rah speech about it. All right, so nobody makes anything. They don't show us this. They just show us the final result again. So Halbrand, I guess, is a little bit disappointed. Anatar Halbrand. I'm just going to keep calling him Halbrand or Halbro. He's disappointed. But here's what he said. Okay, after Miridania, right there, she longs for him, right there. Everything is a dumb relationship, just like we learned a couple episodes ago, that the relationship between Arondir and, Estrid, almost forgot her name. She's that forgettable. Estrid has no basis in reality because they don't trust each other, and it's all dirt. So it's dirty love. That's all we learned about it, right? So here, Mirdania and Atar, it's got to be a relationship because that's the only way that they know they can create tension in there, is if she loves him and it's unrequited. And amateur showing, amateur writing, incredibly dumb. But here's what's even dumber, is that Halbrand speaks with Celebrimbor and says, "You spoke too long. Oh, why would you do this?" And Celebrimbor said that in his speech, what he should have done is noted his contributions to the doors of Durin. That's what he's saying. They didn't show us any rings here. This was a speech about the doors of Durin. And Celebrimbor literally said, I should have noted your contributions more. To the doors of Durin? No. And, okay, so they in the end, they have a speech about not wanting to give the rings to the men, and Halbrand says one thing that's true is I fear Numenor. That's all he says. I fear Numenor. Great, good. That's perfect. You're still hundreds of years way too soon about that. So Celebrimbor doesn't want to create the rings. He doesn't want to create any more rings. He's like, I'm done making them. I'm not going to do it. And especially men, they're too easily corruptible. And then Halbrand reminds him of the great men. And here are the 3 member berries we get of Eärendil, Tuor, and Beren. Great. 3 of the greatest men in the histories of Middle-earth. But that's it. That's all we get. That's his argument for creating the rings. And at this point, we haven't even decided, like, these rings weren't, like, we don't know yet, that we do know in the future that the rings for the dwarves are corrupting the dwarves in some way, and Celebrimbor finds that out. But Halbrand simply says, we must have 9 rings for men now. And the way he says it is the perfection of the 3. Thrice perfected. We will make 9 because 3 times 3 is perfect. This goes back to season 1, where they just pulled out of thin air for some reason that Galadriel said 3 is balanced. When 1 is pure power, 2 is actually balanced, right? 2 scales. So balanced. 2, I guess, could fight against each other, but 3, it would, what? It's balanced? Why is 3 balanced? But they just lean into that and they say, oh, no. 3 times 3 is perfect balance now. But Celebrimbor still refuses, and then Halbrand says, no, I'm going to make them. Then we move on to Gil-galad receives Celebrimbor's note, his treasonous note, right? His duplicitous note that says he's shutting down the fires of the smiths there. He's not going to be making any more rings. And here, let's remember, like, how long did this take? The freaking greatest elves of Middle-earth, Elron and Galadriel, according to the Rings of Power, the greatest fighters in all Middle-earth, the architect, politician, and the Lady of Light, who are the greatest fighters in all of Middle-earth, couldn't get to Eregion from Lindon. They couldn't do it because there's this huge, giant chasm that they had to go around. And if they didn't do that, they'd have to go up and over 2 weeks, 2 weeks longer. But this messenger came through just fine. So what you would say is like, sure, well, it's because Sauron let him through. Well, but that's not what happened in the other ones. It was the Barrow-wights that took them. So why didn't the Barrow-wights take this messenger? Again, they forget about the previous episode. Nothing matters, right? Dumbest ex machina. We'll just make it happen because nothing matters in the story we've told before. All that matters is the story we're telling right now, and we can make up whatever we want. So the message gets to Gil-galad without any problems at all. Gives him a vision of the destruction, I guess, of Eregion. The ring does, because that's what the rings do these days. It can be, and there it is, anything you want. A little bit of destruction, some dead fish from the rivers that have run dry, and Sauron, and a dwarf drinking the heel of a something. I don't know. But that's what it is. That's all. That's all the ring does. The ring doesn't actually do what Tolkien said. I know I said I wouldn't talk about lore all the time, but it's so obvious. The ring is now anything you want it to be. The ring is giving him the visions he needs in order to do that. Okay. Again, let's think about this. If they believe that these rings were affected by Sauron in some way, these evil, because they've made essentially all the rings evil at this point, why would the rings that Sauron helped make give them visions of the things that are going to happen? Wouldn't these rings then not give them visions so that the elves wouldn't come? Maybe that's a good idea. Maybe that's what the ring should have done instead of giving them more vision. But they're saying, I mean, I guess, is Mithril like the Force now, where the Force can do anything you want it to be? The Force can show you the future. The Force can make you teleport. The Force can, I don't know, what can it do? It can, toss things around. Eventually, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, in order to learn how to use these rings, Elrond is like standing, doing a handstand on one hand and lifting some rocks in the air. You guys remember that? Yeah, Empire Strikes Back. I don't know. It just feels like these rings can do whatever they want. So it's their get out of jail free card. When they're stuck, make the rings show them something in order to drive the story forward. Instead of actually feeling like they have to properly plot out the story, they can just use the rings to do whatever it is that they want it to do. We'll drive the story forward by showing the horrible things that are happening. Okay, so that's what Celebrimbor has. Oh, sorry, Gil-galad has. And there's the big vision. Oh, look. Oh, no, it's the ring. And the commander of the South says, we've got to go attack now in Mordor. That's where we got to go because that's where Sauron could be. And so let's go attack Mordor. And then we see Elrond running. That's pretty much it. That's Elrond running. Because you know what? Oh, rip off that. He means business because he ripped off his cloak. Why were you running for so long with the cloak originally? Shouldn't you have just taken it off originally? Okay. Like, he sent the dwarves to get to Eregion quickly to let Celebrimbor know, don't deal with Halbrand, he's Sauron. Where are the dumb horses? Sorry, where are the elven horses? The dumb elves don't take horses. That's what I meant to say. The dumb elves don't take horses. So he runs. Horses are a thing. Horses make you go faster. Perhaps, just maybe, Gil-galad should have taken one of his horses and said, here, you guys, take my horse, and then take the other horses that we don't need right now because we're staying in Lindon. He only sent 5 of them. He didn't send an entire army like he should have. Where are the dumb horses? So Elrond is running. He is running and running and running. So we get back to Celebrimbor and Halbrand and now Myrddania. She is shrieking, and Celebrimbor hears it, runs over, and then sees nothing. And by nothing, I mean she's now invisible. She's carrying a hammer. She's moving things we don't see here. So clearly she's in the Shadow Realm. So now the One Ring is not the only thing that puts you in the Shadow Realm. It's a ring that essentially, they say, has more Mithril. Mithril makes you invisible. So like I was saying before, these rings can do anything because they're powered with Mithril. I mean, I guess maybe it's Mithril now. Mithril is the magic power because they don't show them crafting anything. She said they added more Mithril and it made her invisible. Now, lore again, I take an issue with this. The only things that the ring ever made invisible were mortals, hobbits and humans. But it didn't make, right? That's how the ring wraiths go into the Shadow Realm. It makes them invisible, these rings. Not elves, the eternal, deathless elves. Not dwarves. And certainly not Maiar, right? So what are we doing here? The rings can be anything. But this scene, the stupidity of this scene, it looks kind of like they're on strings and things. And he's watching, oh my goodness. Why would she drag it and grab it? It's floating nicely. Here's the most amazing part of this whole scene. The weird choice that the elves have to put an anvil in the ceiling. Here you go. Ready? It's floating around. Where is she? We can't find her. Oh, big explosion for some reason we don't know. Oh, let's go of the rope. And then, okay, there's 1,000-pound anvil tied up like a sandbag, like some lights. What is an anvil doing in the ceiling? Why do they have wouldn't it be a little bit easier just to move it to the side and put some other things up? But no. They'll take the 1,000-pound anvil in their forge into the ceiling. Again, stupid, dumb decisions that it doesn't make any sense. So Durin the Younger, he arrives and he tells Celebrimbor, oh, bad rings. It's changing daddy. He's becoming greedy and angry. He's not the same guy he used to be. Celebrimbor says, I don't believe you. That's not possible. But then Annatar and Myrddania talk. So Celebrimbor, right, he's indignant, just like Galadriel was indignant with the other rings. He's now indignant with the dwarven rings. So then we have this moment again. Annatar and Myrddania, they talk. And Annatar tells Myrddania that what she saw in the Shadow Realm, because she saw something evil and dark with eyes, I think eyes of fire and skin of flame and blah, 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 right? Clearly pointing back to an image of the eye or an image of Sauron on fire. But he says, oh no, it was Celebrimbor getting closer to the darkness. That's what she saw. Which, okay, inside their world, I guess that's not a bad way of giving him some duplicity, of making him turn her against Celebrimbor. a little ham-fisted, but okay. I disagree with the whole idea that the rings can turn her invisible. Like, they've wanted this whole Shadow Realm to be something evil and dastardly for a long time, when it was the one ring that did it with its ultimate power. But here, no. And then, of course, he is clearly coming on to her just a little bit. He's into blondes. We find that out. He says, "You look like Galadriel," which has prompted the idea that perhaps, maybe she's Galadriel's daughter. Celebrian Miridania, perhaps. Maybe that's her middle name, and she hates the hard k sound. She doesn't like to sound like her dad. So let's just go with Miridania instead of Celebrian. It's too close to Celeborn. Wait, but he's not in the show, so it doesn't really matter. In any case, he's coming on to her. He's like, "You look so much like her, like Galadriel." Okay, and then we move on. And then we get to the scene where Celebrimbor finally decides that the rings are bad. Why did he decide? So we left him and Durin with him saying the rings aren't bad, they're not evil at all. And now we get to the scene where he comes to Halbrand and says the rings are bad. What changed his mind? Dumbest ex machina changed his mind.
Or King Durin is misusing his ring and seeking to deflect blame. No.
Anatar essentially tells him, no, it's Durin. He's deflecting. And then he says, it was the letter to Gil-galad. Lying. The power of the lie. It was infused into the ring. So somehow, just because he was lying, there's the rings have gotten bad news, right? This is not a good thing. You lied to Gil-galad about closing down the shop. And so that lie made these dwarves more greedy and angry. Why? I don't know. You never showed us how you make the rings. So why would we believe you that something like the aura of a lie sitting like a heavy mist in the room would make it evil, would make it wrong? And then they decide, without saying they're going to come clean to Gil-galad. He never says, I need to come clean. He says, oh, the lie. They double down. No. They want to triple down because remember, there is balance in 3. They triple down on the lie. And they decide to make 9 more rings. If they want us to believe that Celebrimbor would believe that this lie, this deceit was in there, right? You got to show us this. And so the resolution to this problem of lies create evil rings, right? They should have been singing like "Don't Worry, Be Happy" or "Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious" to make them feel good. Say it's the power of positive thinking. But they do nothing. They change nothing. They say, we're just going to double down. Go eat some ice cream and release some endorphins. If the spirit of things matter, give everybody some happy fun ball and make them enjoy their time creating the rings so that they don't turn evil. But not that's actually what's happening. But if you wanted to convince Celebrimbor, do something and show us why Celebrimbor would be convinced. But no, Celebrimbor is just convinced because Halbrand says so. He's just convinced because he feels guilty because he lied, even though he doesn't come clean about the lie. And then he goes on. He has to now explain the evil of the rings to the Elven Apprentice Union. Right there, the 9 elves who are going to be looking for work on Numenor one day soon. They're going to be coming for their jobs, taking the jobs in Numenor since the Second Age, the Elvish Apprentice Union that does absolutely nothing. Look, we see him wearing his leather smock there. They're all like with gloves on, ready to go. We have never seen them carry a hammer with the gloves other than the invisible girl walking around in the shadowy realm grabbing things. We don't see them do anything. Why am I harping on this so bad? Because they're making the rings of power. Where are they doing anything? Here is the phrase that Celebrimbor says in order to convince them that what they made was wrong. He says, there is agency uncanny in the heart of stone and ore. Even when a work is yet within the artist's bosom, it begins to disobey him. What? Like, what? Why? What? Just look, oh, okay, we're going to accept that the spirit of the room around the rings makes it disobey them. I started these rings with deceit in my heart. Well, there's still deceit in your heart. You're not changing anything. You're not going back to Gilgalad and saying I was wrong. Let's remake these rings with the full force and authority of the High King of the Noldor. Right? Let's do something like that. No, we're just going to go ahead and triple down and make more. He says, right? Because the 9 must be there to redeem the 7. They must redeem us all. He said, redeem us all. Yeah, here we go.
Last.
Redeem us all. But what are you being redeemed from? Aren't you the one that needs to be redeemed from the lie that you told? And the hubris and sloth that he says that his elvish apprentice union had, I haven't seen any hubris and sloth. In fact, I haven't seen any work at all whatsoever. I guess because lie on the lies, doubling down. The 9 rings are going to be the worst rings of all. Before the 1 ring, of course. Maybe that's why they decided to make the 3 rings first, to say, oh, things are just going to be progressively worse. Now, let's remember, going back to the lore here, the 9 rings were part of the original 16, right? 9 plus 7 for the dwarves. 16 rings, 20 total, 3 for the elven kings, 3 for the elves that were made after the 16, 7 for the dwarves, 9 for the men, and then the 1 ring. So 20 rings. These 16 rings, they weren't created with a specific race in mind. They didn't create rings for the dwarves and then rings for the men, but they were given to the leaders of these races. They didn't have the ability to do the specific things that they were doing. But here, the rings are made for specific races, right? So they go through this. He's all upset that, oh my gosh, I'm making more rings. I'm gonna. It's okay. I mean, I know I'm just going to appear in the next episode with rings, and you're not actually going to show them being made. But oh my gosh, I'm making 9 more rings. How did it come to this? He's so sad and upset. Well, he'd be even more sad and upset if he found out that the entire army of orcs made it to Eregion without being spotted. The ones that Elron and Galadriel and the red shirt elves made, red shirt, Star Trek, they die easily, that they ran into them on the road to Eregion. But no, the entire army of orcs made it without being spotted. These elves are the worst possible defenders of their realm. They can't get 5 people from Linden to Eregion for a warning, and they don't have anybody actually watching their realm, even though they know Sauron is, well, they don't know, I guess, but even though that they know the orcs are out there at this point. That's what Halbrand came and told them, that Adar was there with all the orcs. That's why they were in battle. They know that Barad-dûr was made, but they wouldn't actually put up any defenses. So the dwarves, they show up. Sorry, the dwarves, the orcs, they show up.
Legion of them are headed for Eregion.
Yeah, Elron tells Gilgalad that a legion of orcs is headed for Eregion, and Gilgalad says that he can't send an army because Sauron might be behind this, and he has to, they got to send their army to Mordor. But isn't that what he's been saying the whole time, that Sauron is behind this? Right? Wouldn't he at this point be like, you know what? I've been wrong the entire time about everything. And Elrond, no, you know what? You've been right. Shouldn't I just perhaps listen to my advisors other than Galadriel? Remember, again, anyone he ever listens to is Galadriel, even though Galadriel is the one who has led him astray in everything, has lied to him, has hidden Sauron from him. But yet he trusts her the most. For some unknown reason, he trusts her the most. And still, Elrond, the poor politician architect, can't get anything done.
Galadriel was right.
What?
Must send the army to Eregion this moment.
That will not be possible.
Oh, it will not be possible because we've got to send them to Mordor.
I have reason to believe that Sauron is the architect of all this.
Yeah. That's what Galadriel's been saying and what Elrond's been saying. No. That's what Elrond's been saying about all these rings. And if Sauron is the architect of all this, why are you wearing the ring still? These are the most inept elves, right? Eregion doesn't have any ability to defend itself, apparently. He will essentially say, forget Eregion, we're going to let them split us up and divide us. And so we're going to send everybody over into Mordor way down here, and then we'll let them take Eregion to have a place here to divide our army. We'll put our army here. We'll put our we'll put our cities up here, and our army will divide it so that the orcs can come from this city right up here. What? Who is running this army? Oh, sorry, it's the 4 commanders: the north, the south, the east, and the west. That's how they named them. But if Galadriel's not there to make a decision, Gil-galad won't do anything. So then we get to the shot of Galadriel. Galadriel's in a cage, being pulled along by the orcs. And you know who opens the cage door? Okay, I checked. This is family orc man. So you take him away from his family, and immediately he becomes Orky McOrkface #1, right? Maybe it doesn't matter, but this is the same guy. So he comes in, he's about to like tear some of her hair off, and then she magically comes, has a knife from somewhere. They didn't want to check all her pockets or anything like that. They leave her to have some sort of a little knife, and she comes up to Adar, but Adar simply says, "I want to be your ally." So here's the question. Will this show truly not just jump the shark, but like jump the megalodon and have Galadriel team up with the orcs to attack Sauron and Eregion? Will she literally go against the other elves to attack the city, as Elron said, the jewel of elvendom? Will she do that? Yeah, I think she probably will. The entire story of the elves and making of the rings is non-existent. We never see the rings being made. We don't know what powers they have because the powers can be anything. It's the dumbest choices ever possible within this story. If you want the show to be about the rings of power, make the rings of power something to be feared or something to be respected. The rings of power are something to be licked like a ring pop. We don't care about them. You haven't shown us what like the power that's put into them, what Anatar is doing to them. You just tell us. And the rings of power hold no fear for anyone. And the rings of power are doing all the wrong things. They're showing Gil-galad the places to go. So, oh no, there's going to be danger. So maybe I should send my army over to Eregion. That's the vision that he got. Wouldn't the ring of power, if Sauron had control of it, not do that and say, oh no, the actual attack is coming from the east, so you should, or from the west, so you should go in that direction instead? But the rings are actually showing them the right things. So what are the rings supposed to be doing? And wouldn't the ring like bring instead of opening up the shafts of light in the mountain, wouldn't the ring that Anatar had corrupted, wouldn't that then make the mountain crumble around them and go in the wrong place? And then, oh, look, the dwarves are gone. All right, we crumbled the mountain. Don't have to worry about the dwarves anymore. That takes, like I like to say, that takes a couple of brain cells to rub together in order to make up these logical statements. And the writers of the show can't do that. They have an entire plan laid out for them by Tolkien, and they just completely ignore it for their own dumb machinations, for the dumbest ex machina that they can pull out of their other regions. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. One more episode to go. We'll get through Numenor next with the incredible misunderstanding of who the Numenorings are by the Rings of Power writers. What else is new? If you want to get the extended podcast that we have once a week, once the Rings of Power is over, go to theonering.com/member, and you can join for $4 a month. First month is free, and you get our full Discord chat. You just connect your Discord account through a link on the website. Boom, you get access to all those different communities or different areas in Discord. Or you can go to thewondery.com/Patreon, become a member there. It's $5 a month, and you get 7 days for free. Thanks. We've had some new folks join us lately, and we really appreciate that. And we'll see you in the next one, all about Numenor.